Welcome everybody to another Java with Jim. Thanks for joining us this morning. We were just chatting before we went on record about inflation at 7.8%. So for those of you who have not watched our Java with Jim on price increases, you're going to want to do that because either you're going to be experiencing it or you should be getting them as we go into this year. The inflation is going to frankly require it. And I think the interesting thing is that, if you're of a certain age, you remember inflationary environments and how to do price increases, but there's a whole bunch of people running companies that have frankly never experienced an inflationary environment in their whole life. People don't like to talk about power because it feels like a dirty word, but I'm going to tell you that good leaders are masters at the use of power. And there are good kinds of power, and there are ways you can abuse any kind of power. The first thing that you really have to just get your head around is that if you are a leader and you either like it or don't mind it, you like power. Power is a good thing. It's like the force. The force can be used for good. The force can be used for evil. So you've got power. You like power. In fact, I'd be willing to bet if I analyzed you for your intrinsic motivation, power would be in your top 3 for every one of you, or you wouldn't have the job you have, frankly. So let's talk about first some kinds of formal power and what they look like. And then we're going to go to informal power, which is maybe a more popular type of power in the current environment. So the first kind of formal power that we think about is a little bit of a negative power, but we all use it, which is coercive power. So we have the ability to coerce people to do what we want. That is do this or you get fired, or do this. So there's a negative consequence that I can deliver if you don't do what you're supposed to do. So the other side of coercive power is the second kind of power, which is reward power. So I have the ability to reward you if you do what I want you to do. Okay. So, we use this all the time. This is extrinsic rewards that we've talked about before. If you meet your quota, I'll give you a bonus. If you hit the production quality requirement, everybody gets a $100 bonus. If the team performs at a certain level, we're going to have a pizza party. That's all reward power that we're using. If I always have exactly the same reward structure, people get accustomed to it and it becomes it's no longer reward. Okay. But rewards can move people. And I've talked before about how big a financial reward needs to be to change behavior. And generally, the research says about 8% of base pay. So if you're trying to change behavior using rewards, 8% of base. Somebody makes 50 grand a year. If you put 2,000, I do the math right, $4,000 out there for them, they will change behavior for $4,000. And then the third kind of formal power is positional power. Not a real popular one to use, but we all have it. We have it intrinsically as part of being leaders of our companies, CEOs and whatnot. And here's the funny thing, and positional power is because I'm the boss, I'm the president, CEO, chairman, whatever I happen to be. I am going to tell you to do something. You're going to do it because of my position. It's not a reward or coercion. It's different. It's my position enables me to use power. Okay. And people defer to power. It happens all the time. Is expert power. So if I'm an expert in a particular topic that's important to the organization, I have power by the nature of being an expert. I could be anywhere in the organization. I've got power. Usually people that exhibit expert power do it because they're not particularly high in the organization. If you've got multiple forms of power like this, you just got to realize you're walking around with a giant club to whack people with if you want to. You got to be careful you don't do that. If you have, multiple forms of power, and there's a few other that you may see up. So the fifth one is referent power. And that is people that have earned respect over time. So the secretary, Pat, who I described, she also had referent power. People respected her. I mean, she, beyond her knowledge and her history, and she was really very good at what she did. She was thoughtful. She was a good person. People regarded her highly. Having referent power, people refer to you, people look to you. That has real power as well. And there's probably people in your organization that maybe are scattered in various places, and people just deeply respect them. They think they're great people, and they have power because of that referent, and that comes from a couple of different elements, but referent power is another one. Then let's move to networking power. And this is a real power, which is some people know everybody. They just know everybody. And because they have this gigantic network of people that they know, they have power. Because I go to them when I need to find somebody. So they have access to resources that gives them power. So this one is influential power, or call it charisma. Now, we all know somebody who, sometimes they're salespeople, sometimes they're senior people in the organization, but they get people to follow them because they can influence them. They have no real authority. They have no position. They're not particularly expert, but people follow them because they're charismatic. They're influential. Because a product manager has nobody working for them normally, and yet they've got to get sales, marketing, accounting, engineering, all lined up on where I want to go, purely on influence. They call it power without position. So some people can do power without position, some people can't. But people who have high levels of influential skill have power. And when you're thinking about somebody who's going to be in a coordinating role or a important role, but I'm not going to have any people, you have no structural authority, but they need to have influential authority. This is a little bit of a weird one, but there's another one around personal power, sort of in the Tony Robbins mode of personal power. And that is the ability to create value. So if I have an individual in the organization that has an ability to create value, and that could be through their intellect, through their creativity, through their focus, through their ability to make it fun, those people have power as well, because they create value everywhere they go. I mean, if you have somebody who's creative and fun, they get invited to the meeting and that's power when you get to be in the room where it happened. Information power is one that is regularly used. And this has a little bit of a dark side to it. So we've seen people that hoard information with a view towards protecting their position. So they're using information power to protect themselves. And for those of us that want to fire those people, potentially, it's a very painful power for them to have, and it works. It's effective. All right, how do I unhinge the data? How do I access it? How do I cross-train somebody else? How do I to take the risk out of the loss of information that this person has and I don't have and I need? Founder power is real. And I actually didn't think it was, but I spent a bit of time researching it. And the idea that you're the person that created the company or created the movement, or there is a view, right or wrong, that you know more than the rest of us by the people in your organization, right? They go, you must have some insight, understanding, view of the universe that I don't have because you're the founder and I'm not. At a minimum, you got to say you got some guts to have done that. And that's got a value all by itself. So founder power is real. So those of us that are founders, CEOs, we have information, we have the ability to give rewards. Like maybe you get the picture of why we can be intimidating sometimes. Call it the Gandhi power, is moral power. And moral power is about being the kind of person and setting the kind of example that people aspire to be. So it doesn't come from position. It doesn't come from knowledge. It comes from who you are and how you live. And that provides you moral authority. And moral authority is super powerful. I mean, this is how religions get started and movements get started. And so moral authority is a really big deal. And it's part of why, you're like an icon effectively, right? It's part of why in a lot of employment contracts, they talk about moral turpitude, right? So if you pull at Robert Kraft and get caught in some massage place in Florida, you lose moral authority by that. You no longer become the kind of person that we would like to be like. And so your power and authority gets diminished. Now, depending on, he got away with it, but depending on the organization, that can be enough to mortally wound you as a leader. A leadership theory called social exchange theory that basically is, when I'm leading somebody, I'm in a social relationship with them, and power is part of that social relationship. And so we're not peers.